Great. All right, welcome as we straggle in today. Thank you so much for joining in for lunch. It's going to be a good one. I have a note taker. What is that? All these fancy technological things. All right, so we'll give a couple of seconds just for those who want to join, for them to join, and then we are going to jump in and get our conversation going. We are recording, so the replay will be available after the episode is done. Hi, hey, how you doing? Oh, Andrea, hey, how you doing? Oh, faces. I love it. I love it. Okay. Friendly faces in the mix. Oh, I like the frames. The frames, though. The frames are everything. They're giving me life today. All right. Woo. There's a lot of things giving me life today. First, the frames. Then Lifa's joining in from TNC, my girl. And this chai latte thing that is soothing my soul. It's very nice. Okay, let's jump in. So I can honor your time and so we can actually get through everything today. But I'm gonna make a special request for those of us who are in the space today to just join in the conversation and to share your thoughts, your answers, and all that good stuff. I like to say I'm interruptible. So feel free to turn on your microphones, raise your hand, throw something in the chat. I'll always make reference of it so we can enhance our conversation. So, welcome to season 5 of the relationships series. It is always great to be with you guys. I love your comments, your insights, your reflections. And again, I always say Thursdays at noon are my favorite time of the week. Here at TRS, or on the relationship series, we have transformational conversations that help us to revolutionize our relationships. We do the work, we heal for real, and we sow what we want to grow. I am Genevieve. I'm your friendly neighborhood sister girl with the sister locks. I am your host. I am a passionate person about relationships. I am not an expert in any way, shape, or form, but I do believe in the health of our relationships, and I want to see us have healthier relationships. So I read a lot about relationships, talk a lot about relationships, and I enjoy everything that has to do with relationships. By trade, I'm a therapist. I love to travel. I'm also a coach and an instructor and all those other, fellow journeyer things. The vision here at the relationship series is to share with people how to pursue connection over currency. So quality relationships over money or material things as the main source of value, of joy, and of fulfillment in our lives. So yes, everything matters. And yes, we do need material things and food and so on, but we're focused on quality relationships and cultivating those relationships as a main source of purpose and fulfillment and joy. So that's what we do here. I'd just like to let everybody know why we're here and what we're doing. And we are in season 5. So we're in season 5 of the relationship series. This is our book review season. I'm also a John Maxwell leadership certified coach. So we are reviewing some of my favorite John Maxwell books and principles on leadership, communication, and of course, how they apply to our relationships. So this week, no different, we are going to be reviewing some principles from the book, How to Be a Real Success, which is another John C. Maxwell book. And we might get through to a few authors, but I have a lot of John Maxwell books that I like. But we're going to unpack some of the pieces that we can apply to our life right now, today. Okay, our agenda, very similar to as always. We're going to look at some SAQs, which are self-awareness questions. And self-awareness questions, again, help us to locate ourselves. So where are we in the grand scheme of things? Sometimes we have thoughts and ideas. They're very much influenced by other people, maybe, you know, images that we see, shows that we watch, things like that. But we don't necessarily always figure out or take time to determine and discern what is real for us, like where we are at on the grand scale of things, on the continuum of things. Hey, hi, Chief Highsmith is in the house. Hello, welcome. Oh my goodness, y'all giving me life today. So we'll go through some stuff. Oh, there's my mom. Hey, mom, how you doing? Self-awareness questions. We will go through some quotes because I love quotes. Quotes are sort of succinct ways of capturing truth, and they have stickability, is what I like to say. So quotes stick with us because they're said in a way that that is intriguing and enticing and memorable. So I love doing quotes. For real, I'll let you know what real stands for, but we're going to focus on the A today. And then we'll do some engagement, which is what we always do as you guys share your insights and your personal stories with me. So again, I am interruptible. So make sure you guys interrupt. Show me your face, show me your hands. Let me hear your voices. All right. So how to be a real success focuses on 4 main areas, main themes, I guess. Most people make an effort to excel in these areas in our lives. And what studies have shown over the years is that when we focus on these areas, we have more likelihood, the best chances of succeeding. And success is defined individually, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But success is defined individually. So we get to determine what success looks like for us. But when we are focused on doing life in a particular way and showing up in a particular way, we have greater likelihood of succeeding, of achieving our goals. Okay. So these are the 4 areas that John Maxwell says we can focus in on. Relationships, which we talk about every week. I believe we are created for relationships. And so anything that we do connects back to how well our relationships are going, how much we value our relationships, and how well we are doing, how well we are showing up in our relationships. So we talk about that every week. We connect back all the various themes and topics to relationships, to our relationships, and how we can use them to better our relationships. So we've got that down pat. Equipping has to do with what we do for others, how we serve others. So equipping ourselves with the tools that we need, with the skills that we need, with the education that we need for our success. So if I want to be an astronaut per se, I'm going to have to go, to a certain, I have to matriculate through a certain program. I'm going to have to gain certain skills. My body has to be a certain, I have to have certain conditioning or what have you. So I have to equip myself, but equipping also has to do with others. So equipping others to help us do what we do best. So equipping others to treat us the way we want to be treated, equipping others to be in relationship with us the way we want them to be in relationship with us, and then also equipping others with the inspiration or with the tools or the skills or the education or whatever that they also need in order for them to succeed. Right. So that is a great part of success on an individual scale. How much are we giving back? Because each of us, we go through, we find mentors, we find people that we look up to, and we take from them, right? They're equipping us. Right now, we have John Maxwell books that are equipping us to do better in our relationships. And that's from his years of experience and his years of education and his, years of doing whatever he's been doing. But he's put that in books for us to read. And so he's equipping us, right? So equipping has to do with both equipping ourselves and then equipping others on a number of different levels. Attitude has to, we're going to stick with attitude today. So we're going to cover attitude in great detail and talk a little bit more about what attitude is and how it can help us. And then leadership. Most people kind of understand what leadership is. Leadership here is about self-leadership. So leading ourselves. And then in no matter what sphere, no matter what aspect of life we find ourselves in, being a leader. And so it doesn't mean I have a supervisory position, a managerial position, or I've been given some kind of title at church or in any other organization. Leadership means that we are leading ourselves to be the best that we can be, no matter where we are and in no matter what we're doing. And so if we are a parent or a friend or a colleague, it doesn't matter. You know, we're leading ourselves to become, and this is what we're doing every week when we join together, right? We're finding ourselves in leadership positions when we gain the skills and the knowledge that's required for us to do relationships better. Then we are the models. We become models for others, for teaching them how to treat us, but also for teaching people how to be in relationship in amazing ways, right? And so the like toxic, you know, these kind of maladaptive ways of being in relationships that are somehow, I don't even know how, but somehow glorified and normalized in especially in our dating world now. We can challenge those. We can challenge those and we can say, you know what, there are actually other ways to be in relationship in a healthy way with others that doesn't involve, you know, ghosting and breadcrumbing and gaslighting and, you know, narcissistic, all these trendy pop psychology words that we use to describe, you know, maladaptive ways of showing up in relationships. So leadership also means, you know, leading ourselves and then leading the charge to show and model that we can do relationships better. So we'll focus on the A today. We'll go through a few different sort of criteria for attitude. And so I want to start off with just a self-awareness question. This is just a searching question, a reflection question. What is attitude? So what is attitude, period? How do you define attitude? How do you think about attitude on the inside of yourself? You're like, what is attitude? How would I define that for somebody else? What would you say to an 8th grader, right? What is attitude? And then I want you to think about what is your attitude? So generally speaking, when you think about how you do life, how you go about every day, how you wake up, how you engage, how you talk to people, how you talk to yourself, my goodness, what you say to yourself on the inside, like what are those words? What is your general attitude to life? So I'm going to give us like 10 seconds to think about that while I take a sip of this lovely chai tea. So yeah, thinking about what is attitude, and then what is your attitude? What is attitude and what is your attitude? Any thoughts here? Anyone want to take a shot at answering or sharing on the question? There's no right or wrong. It's really just thoughts and ideas here. So what is attitude? What do you think attitude is? What is your attitude? You guys can jump in. You can throw something in the chat if you'd like, or turn on your microphone if you'd like. Y'all are in the house, but quiet today. Okay, well, I see a chat coming in. Let me see. Samuel, the way we look at life. Okay, yeah. So attitude can be the way we look at life, right? Yeah. So I would say that's like a perspective, like a lens that we have, the way our schema or like our worldview kind of thing that could be associated or connected to our attitude. Yeah, for sure. And the way we look at life, ooh, that can determine and affect our attitudes, or our attitude can determine the way that we look at life. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, okay. The way we think or act. Yes. Those are components as well. Hi, Smith, Chief. Talk to me. I saw your hand.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I raised my hand. I was gonna say that attitude is our approach toward life, how we reflect ourselves to others, how we project ourselves toward others.
Mm-hmm.
So, like if I'm having a bad day, then I might project a bad attitude. I
Mm-hmm.
try and project it all. I always try and project a happy attitude, a good attitude, because in my line of work, you never know. Usually, when I'm going to work, people are usually down and not doing too good. I'm a firefighter EMT, so that's my background.
Yeah. Well, of course, when they call you in, that's probably not a good thing. It's not a good day when we got to call in firefighters. So for you, the basic premise is I'm going to show up happy. I'm going to show up with a smile. I'm going to show up with, sort of a positive attitude. So the way that you project yourself to other people and to the world is part of attitude.
Very
All right.
correct. Very correct.
Yeah, absolutely. I see something in the chat. Who's chatting with me? Oh, maybe that was an old message. Okay. Okay. So attitude, based on what I've gathered, there are many definitions, so many definitions, but you guys captured the essence. So the elements and the main components of attitude have to do with like our inward feelings that are expressed through our external or seen or visible behavior, right? So our attitude is like from the inside out. So sometimes we can feel other people's attitude, and we can feel our own attitude based on like that internal energy. We are first, like, we're humans, but we're also, so we're flesh and blood, we have our senses and so on, but we're also more than that. Like, we're soul and spirit. Like, there's some kind of like essence to us that is more than just this like concrete, tangible encasing. So sometimes we can like feel energy that other people are like displaying or releasing. And I'm not getting into like all the fluffy kind of stuff. I'm just saying that attitudes can be seen without us like hearing words, right? So attitudes are mostly like, what do you call them, body language, mostly body language. So we'll hear, well, they can be, well, anyway, we'll hear people say things like, and this just reminded me of this because I was watching something and they were saying, it was like mantras. They were saying, say like mantras to yourself, like, I'm a great person, or I am beautiful, or whatever. And the lady said, say, I am a successful individual. And then everybody was like, I am a successful individual. And then she's like, say it with attitude. And then all of a sudden, everybody like was like, they were doing all this snap bodies, head, not like neck thing. Like, everybody all of a sudden got something from the inside of themselves, and it was displayed in their external presentation. And it just came from that one instruction. She said, say it with attitude. And so the attitude came out. And I just thought, man, that's so important for us, because we can literally see you displaying something that comes from the inside of you, like something switched, shifted, snapped on the inside of these people. And all of a sudden, they had the attitude that they needed to reaffirm, with conviction and confidence, the words that they were saying. So, I think that that's sort of a good example of how we can see and feel other people's attitude. Like, we can walk into a room and feel, if it's like a kind of a down environment or a positive environment, or like, we can just kind of feel those kind of energies. And I think that has to do with attitude. We can tell people are in a good mood. They might be skipping, smiling, down the street, and we gravitate toward like good, positive energy, positive attitudes when people are exhibiting that. And I think that on some level, we can mask, we can mask outwardly, or model outwardly sometimes things that we don't feel on the inside. So if we were together if you guys were here last week, you would have heard me say that when we are aligned in our thoughts, our feelings, and behaviors, we feel our best. There's no dissonance, there's congruence, right? And so sometimes when we don't feel it on the inside, we can still model it on the outside, but we personally don't feel great about that. Like, it's not, because it's not genuine, it's not congruent. And sometimes, we kind of got to fake the funk. It's the truth. Sometimes we're kind of blah, but the environment that we're going into, or the task or the assignment that we have to complete, requires for us to not be blah. We have to show up and smile and, do whatever it is we got to do with our bodies and our tones of voice in order to connect with and inspire other people. So it's important for us to recognize that the modeling on the outside that doesn't match the inside is not sustainable. And so for us, the work has to be doing what we need to do on the inside in order to have that positive attitude, to fuel those positive vibes, and to give off that positive energy. There's a quote here. It says, a person cannot travel within and stand still without. This is a James Allen quote. He's a psychologist. And he's saying here that what happens inside of us affects what happens outside of us, right? We can't do something on the inside that doesn't impact our external presentation. Like it just doesn't work. So if we have like a hard heart on the inside, it's gonna come out. It's gonna show in our behaviors, in our attitudes, in our responses to other people. Like even if we have, and you know, I've done this. I know I've worked in groups, especially when I was studying, and sometimes I just didn't like the ideas that other people had. I just didn't like it. But what I found was if I agreed to the idea, like if I was like, okay, we're going to do this, even though I don't like it, my attitude was better than if I was like, yeah, I don't like this idea. I'm not signing up for this. Like it was very like subversive, and I'd come up with ways to like, you know, not participate, or even sometimes to hijack the, you know, the whole entire group project. I'm not proud of this. I'm just saying what's happened and how I've learned to have a better attitude, right? So if you have a positive attitude, it's more conducive to our success in terms of the goals that we want to meet, and our ultimate goal, umbrella goal, having better relationships with other people. But I'm talking about like day to day, you know, when we have projects to do, when we have tasks to complete, when we have conversations to have, and things like that. A positive attitude is certainly more helpful than not. And I think it's possible to almost work ourselves into a positive attitude. Like when I know when I have a positive outlook, like I start looking for ways to like solve problems. I start coming up with like creative ways to get the thing done, that kind of thing. Whereas if I'm kind of negative, I'm looking for excuses. I'm like, yeah, that can't be done anyway, or that's going to be hard, or that's going to take too much time, or yeah, you know, that person's probably not going to help, or like I can come up with excuses. I can come up with a whole bunch of blocks on the inside of myself if I just don't want to do something, you know. But I find that a positive attitude opens me up to like possibilities and to like creative solutions, creative problem solving, and so on. So if I were to judge my attitude today versus like say 5 years ago, I would say I have a pretty good attitude today. If I was scaling 1 to 10, and 10 was like the best attitude ever, 1 was like, woo, the worst attitude ever, I'd probably scale myself at like a 6.57. Yeah, I'd probably say I'm pretty steady to maintain that level of attitude. I'm not the most positive person in the world, and I'm not, no, I'm not the worst. So yeah, maybe you guys can give yourself a number or a grade, if you guys are in a grading system, to see, you know, where you guys come in, where you guys are at on the attitude meter, and maybe share why you give yourself that grade as well. All right, you guys let me know as we move on. Okay, so self-awareness question: what determines your happiness? So this is a reflection question. It's an introspection question. Yeah, what generally determines if you are happy or sad? What determines sort of your fluctuations in mood? You know, what do you notice impacts you the most on a day-to-day basis? So for a lot of us, and we're talking here about relationships, right? For a lot of us, our relationships are super significant. And so if the people that are in our lives that we care about, that we love, if they're upset with us, if you know they've done something that we don't like, or they've said something that has been hurtful, then sometimes our attitudes change. You know, we're like super down, like, oh my God, he didn't text me today. Oh my gosh, she didn't text me today. Um, oh my goodness, she's not talking to me, or he's not talking to, you know what I mean? Like sometimes that can affect our attitude. And then all of a sudden we don't want to go to the gym. All of a sudden we want to eat, you know, ice cream and Cheetos. All of a sudden we just want to watch TV. We don't even want to do the project we have to finish, or read the book that we said we were going to read, or contact the person that we said we were going to contact. Oh, I was supposed to reach out and you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden everything comes crashing down. And so, oh, Andrea, the tone and the way they speak. Yeah. Yeah. So like these kinds of things, you know, can really impact our mood. And our mood, which is our internal feeling space, affects our attitude. And wouldn't it be great if we could find a way to be less impacted or less affected in terms of our you know, behaviors and so on, by like external factors, external things. So for some of us, you know, what determines our happiness is like if we got the job, or you know, I'm not going to be happy until I lose 20 pounds, or I'll be happy when you know, I move into this neighborhood, or I get into a relationship, or I get married, or I have a child, or you know, I have a grandchild, or you know, whatever the case is. It's like when what will make me happy? Oh, I might get this degree, or you know, I might get this amount of money, or whatever the case is. And those are all like external factors subject to change, and for the most part outside of our control. And so this is sort of an you know, an admonition for us. It's like, well, how much more convenient would it be if we could use our internal reference to determine our level of happiness? Like how much more so retirement? I see you, Chief. I see you. I see you. That's hilarious. Um, Although you're generally happy anyways, which is hilarious. But you know, for me, when I think of attitude, I think of that thing that can be a pillar, can be, you know, a light for us, can be something that we have full autonomy over, that we can Rhonda's co-signing co-signing retirement. um but can be something that is our internal is it a rudder? What is the thing that the boats are, the boat uses to steer? I think it's called a rudder. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody. But can be our internal, you know, source of direction. And attitude is again within our control. So I'm wondering, you know, if we can consider that as something that we can rely on or depend on. Thank you, Chief. To determine our happiness, right? And you know, so I'm a therapist by trade, and so I work with a lot of clients. And what one of the things that I've always found so cool, and many clients say this, you know, as we go through therapy, they report back and they say, you know what, it's interesting. Okay, you know, 5, 6, 7, 10 sessions have gone by, and they say, well, you know, what's interesting, because we check in right on the goals. My external circumstances haven't really changed, right? So I'm upset because I live in my parents' house, or I'm upset because I'm in a program I don't like, or I'm upset because I have to go to work every day with, you know, in an environment where I don't like the people, and the people are mean, and there's discrimination and all. Like there's a lot of stuff going on externally. I don't have enough money. I don't have the education. I don't have all these things. And then they'll say like, you know, nothing has really changed externally. I still have to go to the office. I'm still the same weight. Um, I still live, you know, in my house with my kids, or with my spouse, or with my family, or whatever. Um, you know, whatever. I still have the same salary, all these things. So nothing has changed externally, but things internally have changed. So their internal mindset, their internal perspectives have changed, and that changes everything. It changes how they see everything. And I think it was Samuel that said the way we see things, or the way we look at life, right? Because even though nothing changes on the outside, if something changes on the inside, then everything actually changes on the outside, which is really wild. It's pretty dope. But when we think of our like the power that we have, you know, to do that, we think of the thing or the tool as being our attitude, right? So our attitude is really the primary sort of force that determines, whether or not we succeed or we fail in changing or transforming our experience of life. And I think it's such an important area of our lives. And most often it comes as a second thought. It's kind of like, yeah, have a good attitude, or someone with a positive attitude. We think, yeah, they have a great life. They never have any problems or whatever the case is. But it's really a muscle that we can pump and that we can strengthen so that we can have, what do you call them? Better relationships. We can have better success. We can meet our goals. We can climb to higher heights. We can stretch. We can grow. All of that other stuff. And so the very fact that attitude, makes some of us, while it can break some of us, is something for us to note and think about. And for sure, it's significant enough for us to sort of explore in more depth and gain a better handle on. So we can use it, right? It's like if you have access to a sword and you're going into a sword fight, like, learn how to use the sword, right? So attitude can be that for us. Okay, let's do some quotes. The most important single ingredient to the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. This is a Teddy Roosevelt quote. And I love it. No matter who we are. And I struggle with this as well. Sometimes I'm discriminatory. Sometimes I am, or discriminatory, not necessarily to like, yeah, I'll say sometimes I discriminate, or I choose carefully who I give my time and energy to. So if I decide to give you my time or my energy, I've more than likely determined that you deserve it, or you're worth it, or whatever the case is. And I'll make an effort. Like, it's kind of a life sentence for me. I'm like, okay, we got to figure out how to figure it out, over the next 100 years, or how many ever years I get to live. But so getting along with people is kind of specific for me. I want to get along with the people that I like, and the people that I've determined I want to be a part of my life. But I haven't yet gotten to the point where I can do that with everyone. So where was I? I was taking a walk. Oh my goodness. I went for a walk, and this gentleman, he was walking too, and he's like walking by, but like going the other way. And he said something. He's so jovial, and he's like, hey, you're walking and getting those steps in, and did it, and he's going on. And I'm like, yep, okay, great. It's my morning walk. I'm like, I just want to get my walk in. And he keeps talking. Like, I swear he talked for a good 100 yards. A good 100 yards. And I just thought, wow, what a great attitude he has about life. And in my mind, I was thinking, he probably gets along with everyone. He's just like, cracking jokes and, making references about the environment. It's a lovely day and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, that's really big. I'm a stranger. He doesn't know me. He's never seen me before. But the effort and the energy that he expended, to just make a connection, I thought, wow, that's pretty epic, in my opinion. I'm not at that level, to be very honest. But I do believe this quote. I think this quote is very accurate, that it is the single most important ingredient for us, right? Getting along with people, and that is dependent on our attitude. Do we want to get along with people? How do we feel about people? I asked this question a couple weeks ago, and I was like, hey, do we actually care about people? If we don't care about people, why are we trying to connect with people? right? So that's a good quote. Okay, and I like this little one. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. And Winston Churchill. And there's a little cat here in the picture, and his shadow on the wall is a lion, right? And I love that. Like, even if you are small, so to speak, you see yourself as big, as you know, like as triumphing, as succeeding. You see yourself in this certain way. And I love that perspective makes all the difference in our attitude, how we see ourselves. And so important. And this again takes time. So I've said this before, that our beliefs are just our thoughts repeated over and over, right? And so this is why things like affirmations work, right? Because it triggers in our brains, you know, the repetition, and it gets kind of down deep into our feeling space and into our belief system and so on. And I mean, people think affirmations are basic, but they're actually not. They're very powerful, because words have power for creating and for manifesting. So when we start to tell ourselves or talk to ourselves the way that we want to see ourselves, then we internally become more aligned in our external environment with that thought or that word, those words, right? And so this, people say, I'm successful. You know, you will be more inclined to be successful in whatever you're doing, whatever endeavor you're pursuing, if you say that, rather than, oh man, I'm never gonna make it, this is never gonna work, or I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm never gonna, right? Like, that brings us down, literally. And so when we have an attitude like, I'm a lion, I'm out here ready to take control, I'm the king of the jungle, you know, that kind of thing, that can actually help us to succeed, and to show up in ways that other people can align with and be inspired by as well. All right. Let us look at the elements and components of attitude. I've got 8 of them. We're going to run through pretty quickly, and you guys will likely be able to resonate with these, because they're pretty straightforward. So, number 1, our attitude is a choice. So the attitude that we have right now at this particular time in history is our choice. We have chosen it personally. Whether we have chosen it inadvertently, subconsciously, or out of scripts and messaging that we've received over time, whether we have chosen it because of habits, or our common responses for survival have been, you know, to guard ourselves or to avoid conflict, or whatever the case is, over time, we have come up with some way to be in the world that works best for us, or that functions best for us. And it is a personal choice, okay? I run into people all the time. I do therapy, that don't subscribe, to that idea that our attitude is a choice. And so external, you know, it's raining today, so I have a bad attitude. Well, do you have a bad attitude because it's raining? Because some people have a good attitude when it's raining. So what's the difference? It can't be the rain, because if I can have a good attitude and it's raining, and you can have a bad attitude and it's raining, then the rain can't be the determining factor. Should it be how we see the rain? Andrea, I need the sunshine too. Listen, I'm all about heat and sunshine, beach, sea, sun, sand. I'm all about it. Am I going to, like, I don't know. Am I gonna be down in the dumps because it's raining? I don't know. It's a question to consider, right? And it's a question to consider when we think about the choice or the level of autonomy that we have, right? So a lot of people believe, you know, they have this attitude because of the job they have that they don't like, or the place that they live, or the car that they drive. Which, I mean, hello, if you live in a place and you drive a car, privilege is like your best friend. But they blame their attitude on something or someone else, so external to the self. I see it. It seems powerless to feel like everything has control over your attitude except yourself. Woo! Yes, KK, absolutely. There is a powerlessness in that. There's no autonomy in that stance. right? Like I don't have a choice. I'm just subject to the external environment, external life circumstances, what happens to me in my life. And life is gonna life, right? Life is lifing, life is gonna happen and so on. But we have to realize that the only person that can make us like happy or sad or positive or negative is us, right? So the I'll be happy when syndrome is a choice. That is a literal choice to be when I'm older, when I'm happier, when I'm married, when I'm this, when I'm that. Like that is a choice, right? It's not something that we reach out for. It's something that's within this whole attitude thing. And so I'm driving it home because it's part of what creates the foundation for us to build upon when we are looking to create transformation and change in our own lives, as well as in our relational lives. Because if we feel helpless and powerless, again, then we won't do the work that's required because we won't seek the work that's required. Like if it doesn't matter anyways, or if I don't see a way for it to exist, then what am I doing? Why am I trying? It doesn't make sense. It's futile, right? Resistance is futile. So our attitude is a choice has to be a real consideration in our minds. It has to be a way that we can understand our autonomy and our power in driving, the outcomes that we're looking for in our lives. Okay. And you don't have to fully subscribe. I'm just asking you to consider it. If you don't fully believe it, that's okay. I'm just asking you to consider it as we go through these points. Okay. All right. Our attitude is a choice. Our attitude determines our approach to life. Someone said this earlier. And our approach to life every day will set us up for how others will approach us. That's just the truth. We've all heard the glass is half full or the glass is half empty, right? We've heard this. The truth is that both of them are true. The glass is half full and it's half empty. But each perspective stirs up different emotions. Like if it's half empty, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm running out. If it's half full, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm filling up. It's getting there. We're almost at the top. Those are two very different attitudes or emotional responses or emotional experiences to the very same phenomenon. And that again is a choice. It's based on our thought processes, our conditioning, and of course our desire to cultivate a particular perspective or attitude when it comes to our lives. It's like waiting in line for something. Like, we have to wait anyways. So are we gonna wait with a smile and think about all the wonderful things that we're gonna do when we get home with our groceries? Or we're gonna wait with a frown and be like, oh, hurry up to the next person in front of us. Like, why are you counting your change like that? I don't even know if people use money anymore. But it's how will we wait, right? What will we wait? What attitude will we wait with? That is our choice, right? And it determines how our attitude determines our approach in that particular environment. So let me see, this little guy says, oh man, I wish I had more. Same situation. And then this other guy says, I'm so lucky to have all of this. Completely different attitude. Same situation, different approach and perspective, right? So I'm curious, like how many of you guys can think of like when you've shown up like this, when you've shown up in either, I've been both, I've done both for sure. Absolutely, hands down. What I do realize and I'm aware of is that they garner different emotional responses for me. So I hold different emotions, right? And one set of emotions is more satisfying for me. I'd rather just be joyful. I'd rather be grateful. I'd rather be excited because it just feels better. It just feels better for me. So and it just helps my life. So, that's again a choice. Ooh, we got quotables. All right, Chief, your attitude determines the altitude. Yes, absolutely. Your attitude determines how high you can go, right? And if you can see yourself as higher, then you can be higher, you can get higher, right? So what if others saw you? I don't know if you guys can sort of self-evaluate, like what would other people say about you? I know you guys didn't want to post what what you'd say about yourself, but what would other people say about your attitude? Like, do you ask other people? Do other people, do you ask other people about how you show up, how they experience you? I've done this at different points in my life and much to my, chagrin, my loved ones have been very honest with me and telling me what kind of attitude I have. But it, it offers an opportunity to create change. So that's great. But like just thinking about it, like how do you guys see yourselves? How do you guys show up? How do other people sort of experience you in the world? There's a story, it was it was a story about it was a guy, it was a story about, I remember the punchline, but I can't remember the actual story. But he said, oh yes, yes, yes. So it was a guy, he was home and his grandchildren put like cheese on his mustache, and he woke up and he was like, oh man, everything smells so cheesy. And then he went outside and then he was like, but it smells cheesy out here too. And then he like went for like a walk or whatever. He's like, oh my God, like everything smells like cheese, like the whole world stinks. And it was it was such an interesting story because he didn't realize like he had cheese on his mustache. And so he experienced the whole world like that. He experienced everything as smelling like cheese. And that's kind of like our attitudes. It's like we carry it with us. Sometimes we're not aware that we're carrying this thing with us, and everything just looks so bleak and blue and whatnot because we're carrying that attitude, along with us no matter where we go. Samuel says, I'm some combination of humble, optimistic, and aloof. Interesting. Is that from you or is that from others? Like other people have told you that, or you're telling yourself that? Is how people see you. Ah, got it. Interesting. And I guess it would also matter what, like where people are at and what environment people see you in as well. Um, Chief, folks love my attitude. As a leader, I feel I must project a positive attitude to motivate my people and get the job done. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a recognition there, again, that you have choice and that your attitude will facilitate success. Success meaning how you inspire other people and how you get your job done. Andrea, positive yet aware. Okay. So positive, not like that toxic positivity they talk about, like we're oblivious to the challenges of life, like, oh my God, everything is just like, roses and sunshine, not like that, but in some way recognizing life is happening. There are going to be challenges, there are going to be difficulties and so on, but we can put our own sort of positive lens on it to see it well and approach it well, or to the best of our ability. Not worried about how people see me as long as respect is there. Interesting, Chief. All right, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Okay, sorry, let me get through these. I'm curious about that. Not worried about how people see me as long as respect is there and how that impacts your attitude. Let's do, because I've got 8. I'm gonna make sure. Okay, yeah, we can get through them. We can get through them. Let me do this. So our attitude determines our relationship with other people. We know that. We all understand that we cannot consistently be successful without the help of other people. We just can't. We're not made to live alone. We're created for relationships. So the essential sort of building the essential component to building proper relationships with others is our attitude and our desire and skill set when it comes to connecting. Okay, so our attitude determines our relationship with other people, because when we show up in relationship with other people, they either like us or they don't, or they either feel good with us or they don't. So if we're insulting and rude and whatnot, then people aren't going to feel good about us and they don't want to be our friends. And yes, this is a great one. This Stanford Research Institute did this study, and they did it as it pertained to people's attitude. So they had a whole bunch of criteria for determining attitude, and then they had a whole bunch of like questions about salary. And so 87.5% was the percentage, like 87.5% of people who knew a lot of things Also made a lot of money. So let me say it better than that. So they found that the money that you make, or the salary that you make, was determined by 87 determined by how well you dealt with other people, so the kind of attitude that you had, 87.5% of the time, or amount of the pie, versus like 12 point something percent of knowledge. Okay, so it mattered how much you knew, 12%, but it mattered more how you did what you did. So how you showed up with other people. That's 87% was dependent on that. And so people who were able to get along with other people, who had good attitude, positive attitudes, they made more money. Like their salary, like I was dumbfounded. I was just like, that's fantastic. So if you have a good attitude, like you can stand to make more money. Google did a similar study, I think it was 2017, where they studied CEOs, Fortune 500 companies, and so on and so forth. And emotional intelligence was actually found to be one of the main and major criteria for like those who led these kinds of companies. They had higher levels of soft skills, empathy, things like that. So I thought that was interesting. So our attitude can actually determine success in our fields of study as well. Okay, I'm looking at the time. So number 4 is the only difference between success and failure is our attitude. And there's a quote here, which I love. Always be kind to your A and B students. Someday one of them will return to your campus as a good professor. Also be kind to your C students. Someday one of them will return and build a $2 million science laboratory. And I love that quote because it gives everybody a place to be. It gives everybody some kind of significance. There's no better or worse. It's being able to value everybody for who they are, for what they bring, and for what they can contribute, for what they can do. Not everybody is going to be a carpenter. Not everybody is going to be, a professor or an academic, right? But each one has their own ability to add value. So no matter where we find ourselves, we can literally have a good attitude about what we have to contribute and what we have to offer, right? So our aptitude, our ability to do something is important to our success in life, but it's not everything, right? So we have to be able to do that for ourselves, see within ourselves our own value, and have an attitude, a positive attitude towards that. And this is the like, I don't have syndrome, right? Like, oh, I don't have this, and it's like a comparison thing. I'm not as, or I don't have this, and so on, and so that hinders our ability to succeed. Our attitude at the beginning of a task will affect the outcome more than anything else. So one of the things that is positive and motivating for us, one of the things that gets the momentum going, is at the beginning of a thing, telling yourself that you are going to finish it. Like you're going to finish it out no matter what. Like no matter how long it takes, no matter how much stress or distress or struggle, you're going to finish it. That helps us to actually complete the task. And so at the beginning, most of us are very like, energetic, and we're excited, and we have, sort of that motivation. But as we continue through a task, it becomes somewhat distressing, and we're like, oh man, like when do we get to the end? And sometimes we quit, right? Because we haven't determined at the beginning that we're going to finish. And so having a good attitude, even through those moments of like, distress or what have you, can help us to sort of overcome those bumps, overcome those steps, and get to the end where we succeed or we accomplish the goal or what have you. And I find this when I start like a new workout, like the first week, I'm like, yes, let's get it. Let's do it. When we get to like week 3, I'm like, does it really take all this though? Like, can we like, can we not? But then when we we get over some of those humps, we start seeing results, or I start seeing results, then I'm newly motivated again. So, we have to sort of look at our attitude as we start a thing, because that can help us determine how we're going to end a thing. All right. Our attitude can turn our problems into blessings. Yes. And I love this quote. What is the difference between an obstacle and an opportunity? Our attitude towards it. And every opportunity has difficulty, and every difficulty has opportunity. I love that. So you see here, the little guy has a big boulder and he's carrying it on his back. That is the definition of a problem. Like, we've got everything on our backs. We're like, oh my goodness. But the other guy, he gets on top of it. He starts using it as a little, a little wheel for himself to move forward. And he's just, charging ahead. And so that again is our attitude to something, right? Are we coming up with creative solutions to figure out how to get to our end goal? And so when we're confronted with a difficult situation, someone with an outstanding attitude might come up with this, this little guy's approach, right? He may make the best of the situation, even though it might be a hard situation. And then if you really think about it, like the difference is our recognition that it's possible, right? It's possible to create a better situation out of every situation. And so we'll be searching for how to do that. So I really like this little guy's jumping on top of the boulder. All right. I'm almost done. Okay. So we've got 2 more. 4 minutes. So I generally like using melanated faces in some of in most of these presentations, but there's 2 non-melanated faces here, and that's because I like their stories. These are some of my favorite attitude stories. So most of you guys will probably recognize Mae Jemison, who worked for NASA, and she was the first Black woman astronaut to travel into space not too long ago. And she faced so much discrimination, especially in white environments, in male-dominated environments. But her attitude was always like, I actually belong here. I can do this, and I'm going to. And so any obstacle or setback that she faced, her determination was, I can do this. I belong here, and I'm going to. And I love that attitude because it set her apart from anyone else. She wouldn't quit. She wouldn't back down, and she just kept going. She was like, "No, I'm gonna do this." And Ursula Burns is also similar. She was the first Black female CEO of Xerox. I think somewhere early 2000s or so. But I mean, Fortune 500 company. She's running it, and this is like the first ever. Representation does matter, but what is important here is her attitude, because although she faced setbacks, she came from Panama, she came from a poor family, immigrant family, blackface, like she's a female, like all of these so-called deterrents against her, but she just kept going. She's like, I'm going to work hard and get scholarships if I don't have money. I'm going to study day and night by the light of the moon if I don't have electricity, right? And her attitude was just like, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to do it. I'm going to excel. And that approach is what propelled her forward to succeed and to climb through the ranks and to demonstrate herself and set herself apart, demonstrate herself as someone who's competent and set herself apart. So I love her story. And you guys know Michael Jordan, obviously one of the greatest basketball players of all time, but I think he got cut from like his varsity basketball team in high school because they were like, yeah, bruh, you're not good enough. But he kept going, he kept going, he kept struggling, he kept practicing. And he's now one of the most notorious basketball players that has ever lived. People still wear his shoes. Like, people call J's vintage J's and pay extra money for them because they were made in the 1980s. Like, think about that legacy. I'm not buying those shades. But anyway, think about that legacy, right? And he just kept going. And the same with Albert Einstein. He was deemed lazy. He didn't even speak till he was 4 years old, right? Now he's like, oh, theory of relativity. Everybody knows Albert Einstein. I don't even understand the theory of relativity, but it's one of the most famous theories on the planet, right? But he didn't allow what early teachers said or what early circumstances in his life dictated to determine his outcome, to determine what he was going to keep doing, to make him to stop him. And Walt Disney, again, one of the most most famous and well-recognized faces on the planet, or names at least on the planet. And in school, they told him he wasn't creative enough. Like they said Mickey Mouse was gonna I think it was gonna scare women or scare females or something like that, and he should scrap that whole that whole image. And I thought, my goodness, like imagine they allowed these opinions or these external circumstances and factors from other people to stop them. No, they had an attitude that said, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to go for what I want. I'm going to, pursue my dreams and so on. Okay, give me 3 more minutes. I'll get through the last two. Our attitude gives us an uncommonly positive perspective. We've talked about this. I've keenly observed different approaches and results achieved by a positive thinker, or by then in comparison to a person filled with like fear or apprehension. Like there is such a difference. Like fear and apprehension closes us down. It closes us off to solutions, to creative thinking, and that positive thinking it opens us up. It's night and day. And I've experienced it personally myself, but I also walk with clients through this on a regular basis. And I can't stress enough how much just having, a positive attitude can be helpful for us. So I wish I had more time with us, but we don't. We're going to close for today. But I think what I want to drive home is that our attitude not only impacts us and affects us, but it has such a profound place in our relationships, because it determines how we show up in our relationships, how we show up for others, how we see others, how we experience others, how we interpret what others say. And so sometimes, if you're in a bad mood, or if you're kind of feeling sensitive or rejected or what have you, then the things that other people say are going to hit a different place in you. And I think it's important for us to be aware of that so that we can respond well when those kinds of encounters take place, and so that we can preserve the quality of our relationships, right? And so we never know which words or which reactions are going to be like the breaking one in our relationships, because sometimes it's hard to recover when certain things are said or certain reactions are experienced, right? It's like, oh, like that one with a gut punch, winded, like I'm out, you know what I mean? And we start trying to figure out ways to protect ourselves in those spaces. So our attitudes are so important for how we show up in our relationships, and can literally make or break the relationship quality. So I want to drive that home, and we are done. 4-week masterminds coming up early next year. Y'all know what it is. We're going to go deeper into these lessons for our group. There's lots of exercises. We're going to practically apply them, track our progress, and so on. And we'll start that in early 2025. But for now, join us next week for Are You an Influencer? We are an influencer, like pandemic, epidemic. Like there are so many influencers, but we're going to be talking about becoming a person of influence, and a real person of influence, with integrity, and with something to back up what you want to be influencing people on. So if you want to invite your wannabe influencer friends out for this one, you can do that. But we want to do it with integrity and with excellence, so that we can maintain consistency and add value to others. So thank you guys again for being here, for giving your attention. I know attention is one of the most valuable forms of currency in our day today. So thank you guys for bringing your attention, for bringing your stories, for bringing your insights. I don't take it for granted. I really, really appreciate you guys being here, choosing to give your attention to this every week. So next week, Are You an Influencer? We'll be talking about that on the relationship series. Thank you guys so much again for being here, and enjoy the rest of your day. Go out and live a revolutionary life. Bless you guys. Oh, thank you. Absolutely. A pleasure. Thank you guys. Hey, Marva. Oh, I didn't see you were here. Hey. Hey, Sim. Absolutely a pleasure, you guys. Absolutely a pleasure.
Have a good one.
Thank you, you too. Have a
All
great
right. Bye.
day. Bye, guys.